At the party, my son, Evan, spoke up loud enough for everyone to hear. "Mommy, you're having Adrien's baby. Are we gonna move in with him?" My wife, Claire, set a plate of steak in front of me and said quietly, "Your daddy and I made a deal. Whoever cheats first has to disappear from the other person's life forever. I can't let that happen. When the baby comes, we'll just say it's your daddy's." Then she signed to me that she loved me forever, soft hands, practiced calm, but she didn't see the way my jaw tightened. She had no idea I'd gotten my hearing back a week ago. She didn't know I'd already found their little apartment. And she definitely didn't know I'd quietly bought a one-way ticket to Lenara, where I'd been accepted into a volunteer teaching program. I was just waiting for the paperwork to clear in 7 days. Then I'd be gone for good. I pushed the steak away. I was done playing along. When I stood up, Claire jumped up too and signed, asking what was wrong. I shook my head. "It's late. I'm heading home to rest." She tried to come with me, but her friends held her back, all smiles and wine-bright eyes. "Noah's not feeling well," someone said, using my name like a punchline. "He needs sleep. Why rush off?" "Yeah," another chimed in, giggling. "Adrien's almost here. You haven't seen him all day. Don't you miss him?" Evan tugged on Claire's sleeve. "Mommy, I miss Adrien. Can we skip going home with Daddy?" Panic flickered across Claire's face when she saw I didn't react. She forced a laugh and scolded Evan in a sweet voice I used to believe. "Don't say Adrien's name around your dad." "Why?" Evan shrugged. "Daddy's deaf. He can't hear anyway." I gently guided Claire back into her chair, like I was still the man she thought she could fool. "I can get home on my own. You guys enjoy yourselves." Then I turned and walked out before she could stop me. I hadn't gotten far when Adrien Valdez strode in like he owned the place. He clipped my shoulder hard enough to make me stumble. I couldn't tell if it was an accident or a message. He didn't even glance back. He went straight into the private room and scooped Evan up like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Evan," Adrien said, grinning. "Did you miss me today?" "Yeah." Evan beamed. Adrien laughed. "Good boy. You deserve a reward." Evan threw his arms around Adrien's neck and kissed his cheek. Watching them, you'd think they were the real father and son. Adrien set Evan down, then pulled Claire into his arms, looking at her like she was his whole world. I'd never seen Claire look shy like that before, like she was a girl again, like she didn't have a husband at home who'd spent years loving her with his whole life. Before she could say anything, Adrien leaned in and kissed her, confident, familiar, like no one had the right to be surprised. "Come on," someone teased. "Months and you're still like this?" Claire's friends didn't bat an eye. Evan watched like it was completely normal. I stood there, my stomach hollowing out, while the room buzzed with jokes that only made sense if everyone already knew. Everyone. Except me. Adrien smirked at the teasing. Then it got worse. People started laughing and asking when Claire and Adrien had last been together, like it was party trivia. Claire looked down, half embarrassed, half pleased. Adrien looked proud. 2 days ago, he said easily. In the room next to the master bedroom. I felt my face go cold because I knew exactly what he meant. I remembered the night. I remembered the sounds through a wall I'd trusted. The room erupted. "Claire, you finally get it," someone said, clapping. "People like us don't have to pretend to be saints. As long as you keep it hidden, you're golden." Another voice, louder, crueler, "Noah's deaf. He'll never know." When they said my name, Claire's smile faltered for a split second. "Don't talk about Noah like that," she muttered. Nobody cared. They just kept laughing. Evan shouted, "Mommy, don't worry. Daddy won't find out. He can't hear." The laughter kept rolling, bright and careless, while I stood outside the door like a ghost. Then a waiter tapped my shoulder from behind. "Sir, can I help you with something?" The moment he spoke, the room went dead silent. Every head turned. Claire went pale. She yanked her hand away from Adrien's waist, eyes darting around like she could find an exit through the walls. She started signing fast, too fast, asking what I was doing there, trying to shape a story out of thin air. Adrien didn't move. His hand stayed where it was. His expression didn't change. He just looked at me with that smug, knowing curve of his mouth. Even though I'd already decided to leave, seeing it in the open still hurt so badly I could barely breathe. I forced a smile like an actor hitting his mark. I reached into my pocket and held up her keys. "Forgot to give these back," I said calmly. I set them on the table. "Have fun." Then I walked out without looking back. Outside, the streetlights blurred. Cars passed in streaks of white and red. The world felt far away, like I was watching my life from behind thick glass. I couldn't hear anything, because for years, that had been my truth. And in that moment, the numbness came back so completely it felt like my body remembered how to survive. It took me back to 5 years ago, when Claire and I first got together and took a trip to Silver Ridge Flats. We'd gotten lost out there and walked for a whole day and night. Dead quiet. No sound anywhere. Back then, I'd held her hand, and she'd signed that if we died together, it wouldn't be such a bad ending for our love story. She always told me love should last until death. But now our love was already dead. We'd finally reached the end. We just hadn't said it out loud. When I got home, I collapsed onto the bed, drained down to the bone. I stared at the ceiling, mind blank, like my thoughts had finally run out of strength. When I first met Claire, it was at a job fair. The second I saw her, I was hooked. From that day on, I chased her so openly everyone knew. She was the company's famous ice queen. She'd turned down every guy who confessed to her. Until me. I showed up every day, started conversations, asked her to lunch. I kept at it for 3 whole years. No matter how many times she shot me down, I didn't quit. Then one night, a disgruntled former employee showed up outside the office, drunk and aggressive, and cornered her near the entrance. People scattered. Some pretended they didn't see. I stepped in front of her without thinking. I got hurt badly enough that the doctors later told me I was lucky to recover at all. And that was how I lost my hearing. That was also how Claire finally fell for me. I still remember her holding onto me afterward, her voice shaking, her hands trembling when she signed through tears. "Noah," she'd said. "Let's get married." After we got together, my love never faded. Hers seemed even stronger, at least at first. But after Evan was born, something shifted. He grew up resenting that I couldn't hear, resenting the way our home needed quiet patience and hands that talked instead of voices. Claire spent every night teaching him sign language so I could communicate with him better. She told me we were a team. She told me we'd built something unbreakable. Then the front door opened, and the sound pulled me out of the past. I rolled over and pretended to be asleep. A moment later, I felt the mattress dip. Claire slid in behind me. Her hand drifted over my shoulder, her breath warm at my neck, familiar in a way that used to make me melt. I knew what she wanted. A few weeks ago, I wouldn't have been able to hold back. I would have reached for her like she was my home. But now my body didn't recognize her the same way. All I felt was something sour and distant, like my skin was rejecting a lie. A week ago, right after my hearing returned, I'd rushed home to share the news with her and Evan. I'd been smiling like a fool on the sidewalk, holding back happy tears. I wanted to tell her I could finally hear our son laugh. Before I even reached the bedroom, I heard Claire's voice coming from the room next door, too loud, too breathless, too unmistakable. My blood went cold. I thought I was imagining it. I told myself there had to be another explanation. Before I could move closer, Evan appeared and blocked my path. He used homework as an excuse, pushing me away and muttering under his breath, "I don't want you ruining Adrien's fun." That was the moment it all snapped into place. They thought I was still deaf. They thought they'd covered their tracks perfectly. They had no idea I could hear every word. That same day, I applied to the Lenara teaching program and booked my ticket. Just like the deal Claire and I had made long ago, back when we thought it was romantic instead of tragic. If one of us ever cheated, we would disappear from each other's world forever. I'd kept my side of that promise all these years. Now it was time to honor it the only way I could. Claire's hand slid lower. I sat up suddenly and pulled away. She startled and slipped off the edge of the bed, catching herself on the frame with a sharp gasp. She looked up at me, more worried than angry. "Noah. What's wrong?" she asked softly. I almost answered out loud. Then I remembered who she believed I was. After a beat, she remembered too. Her face tightened, and she began signing instead, fast and anxious. I signed back with practiced calm. "Nothing. Just not feeling great." Panic rose in her eyes. She rushed closer, signing frantically. "Adrien's really just a friend. Please don't get the wrong idea." She was always so controlled. So composed. But today she couldn't hold it together, not when Adrien was involved. I didn't want to deal with her. "I'm tired," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Going to sleep." I turned away. She froze behind me. The room was quiet for a long time. Then, in a whisper so small it almost sounded like prayer, she said, "Noah. I love you. I really, really love you. Please don't leave me. I don't know how I'd go on." Tears slipped down the sides of my face into the pillow. If she loved me, why did she betray me? We promised we'd never separate in this lifetime. We promised forever. We promised until death. But we also promised a consequence. And she'd chosen it. Early the next morning, maybe because she sensed something was off, or maybe because guilt has its own instincts, Claire suggested we go out together. "We've talked about the amusement park forever," she said, forcing brightness into her voice. "We just never had time. Noah. Want to come with us?" She rubbed her hands together and gave me those puppy dog eyes that used to undo me. For once, Evan didn't look annoyed. He actually seemed excited. He packed his things fast and hurried to the door like he was afraid I'd change my mind. At the park, Evan held my hand the whole time. Claire took care of everything: water when I pressed my lips together, snacks when I looked like I might be hungry, little souvenirs whenever my gaze lingered too long. They even went on rides I liked, the ones they'd always been too nervous to try. Claire looked exhausted, but she held my hand tight and wouldn't let go. Evan leaned against me, looking genuinely happy. At the end, Claire bought 3 matching charm bracelets and fastened them around our wrists. "Now everyone will know we're a family," she said, smiling too wide. "We'll never be apart." I didn't respond. Then Claire took my hand and placed it on her stomach, her eyes shining like she was offering me a miracle. "Noah," she said softly, and then repeated it in sign, "I'm pregnant again. Evan's getting a little brother. One more person in this family who'll love you." "Yay!" Evan cheered. "Finally someone to play with. I won't be bored anymore." I stared at their happy faces and felt something hot and sharp burn through my chest. They kept saying they loved me. But they'd betrayed me. And now they wanted me to raise another man's child and smile while doing it. What did I do to deserve this? Claire saw my silence, saw the shadow in my expression, and her smile faltered. She repeated everything again in sign language, slower this time, as if clarity could fix betrayal. I looked at her, my voice turning into ice. "Are you sure the baby is mine?" Panic flickered across her face so fast she almost hit it. "Almost." She forced a laugh. "What are you talking about? Of course it's yours." Evan snapped, "Daddy. How can you doubt Mommy? I'm mad at you." Before he could finish signing, Claire's phone rang. She stepped away to answer. When she came back, apology was painted all over her face. "Something came up at work," she said. "I have to go handle it." She glanced at Evan. He immediately said, "Mommy, I'll go with you." Claire grabbed his hand, and they rushed off. As she turned, I caught a glimpse of her screen. "Adrien." I stood there for a moment, then slid the charm bracelet off my wrist, dropped it into the nearest trash can, and walked away. Since she cared so much about him, I would step aside. From now on, the 3 of them could play happy family without me. Over the next few days, Claire and Evan were barely home. When they did show up, they looked exhausted, like they were living 2 lives and running out of air. They tiptoed around me, careful, watching my face the way people watch a sleeping dog they don't want to wake. I didn't ask questions. I acted like the deaf man they believed I still was. Meanwhile, news about Adrien kept popping up everywhere. Videos, photos, posts that everyone in our circle seemed to treat as entertainment. Sometimes it was Evan riding around town with him in a brand new car, smiling like he'd finally gotten the dad he wanted. Sometimes it was Claire cooking meals for him. Everything showed how much attention and devotion they poured on Adrien in plain sight: hearts, laughing captions, inside jokes. The comments were full of congratulations and teasing, like everyone was in on the punchline. And I was still the only one who'd once believed the marriage mattered. So I stayed home and erased myself. Day 1, Adrien posted photos of Claire taking Evan to watch fireworks with him at an amusement park. I pulled every framed picture in the house that showed the 3 of us smiling, every vacation, every birthday, every family moment, and I tore them down. I shredded the photos and threw them away until my hands stopped shaking. Day 2, Adrien posted pictures of Claire and Evan setting up a sea of flowers for him, like he was the center of their world. I hired workers and had the greenhouse torn down, the one they'd built for me, the one Claire once called our little dream. I watched the glass come apart piece by piece without blinking. On the last day, Adrien posted a photo of himself and Evan with their heads leaned close to Claire's stomach, like a perfect little family portrait. I finished packing. My passport was in my pocket. My ticket was on my phone. The final forms were ready. I was about to leave when I heard the front door open and felt a presence in the hallway. Claire stood there with Evan beside her. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her hands trembled around a document she was gripping like it might fall apart if she loosened her hold. She looked tense, scared, and suddenly very real, like she'd finally understood that consequences don't disappear just because you beg them to. "Noah," she said, voice cracking. "This says you're going to Lunara as a volunteer teacher. Is that true?" I looked at the paper like it belonged to someone else's life. Then I looked at her, my wife, my son's mother, the woman who could sign forever with hands so steady you'd swear she believed it. I nodded once. Her face crumpled. Panic poured through her like water through a cracked glass. "Why?" she whispered. Then her hands started flying, sloppy and desperate. "Where did this come from? Why didn't you tell me? Is this because of tonight? Is it because of Adrien?" I tilted my head, like I didn't understand. Because that's what they expected from me. The deaf husband. The safe husband. The husband who never heard the jokes, never heard the moans through the wall, never heard his own son say, "I don't want you ruining Adrien's fun." I kept my expression neutral. "It's just something I applied for," I said calmly. "It's not final." Claire exhaled like she'd been drowning and found air. "Then don't go," she pleaded, voice soft, sweet, like she was rewinding time and trying to play me like a song she knew by heart. Her hand signed it too. "Don't go. Please. We're a family." I stared at her hands. Those same hands had touched Adrien's face tonight. Those same hands had rested on his waist when she thought no one was watching. 7 days, I said, because that was the truth. Paperwork clears in 7 days. Her eyes darted left and right like she was calculating how to stop a clock. Then she forced a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. 7 days is a long time, she said. "You're tired. You're upset. Let's not do anything drastic." I almost smiled. Because she didn't realize she'd already done the drastic thing. She'd done it months ago, and she'd done it every day since. Claire swallowed hard. "Noah," she whispered, and her voice turned into something smaller, almost childlike. You're my husband." Her hands trembled when she signed it. "You promised me forever." I held her gaze and signed back with a steadiness she didn't deserve. "So did you." That's when she flinched. Just a fraction. Like my words had found bone. Then she recovered. She always did. She wiped her face, pulled her shoulders back, and tried to become the version of herself everyone admired. I just want to fix this," she said, like betrayal was a loose button she could sew back on. "Okay," I said, because it was easier than fighting. Claire latched onto that one word like it was hope. The next morning, she acted like a woman on a mission. She made breakfast herself, pancakes shaped like little stars, Evan's favorite. She poured my coffee exactly the way I liked it. She kissed my cheek and held it there a beat too long, like she was trying to erase the taste of someone else. Then she announced, too brightly, "Today is Evan's birthday. Let's celebrate properly. No work. No errands. Just us." Evan's eyes lit up. "But not because of me." "Is Adrien coming?" he asked, mouth full of syrup. Claire's smile tightened. "Adrien is busy," she said quickly. Evan pouted. "It's my birthday. I want him." Claire shot him a warning look, then glanced at me like she expected me to be oblivious. She still hadn't learned how terrifying silence becomes when it's no longer forced. I watched them for a moment, then nodded. "Sure," I said quietly. "Let's celebrate." If she wanted 7 days, she could have them. But she wouldn't like what I did with them. That afternoon, Claire's friends filled our house like perfume and laughter. They brought balloons, wine, gifts with shiny bows, and that same cruel familiarity I'd felt through the crack of a half-open door last night. They hugged Claire and winked at her like she was in on a private joke. Which she was. Evan ran between them, thrilled, showing off his birthday crown. Someone handed him a little toy car. Someone else ruffled his hair and said, "Happy birthday, champ." Then the front door opened. And Adrien Valdez walked in like he belonged. He wore a baseball cap low on his forehead and sunglasses even though we were indoors. He carried a big gift bag in one hand, and with the other, he scooped Evan up without missing a step. Evan squealed. "Uncle Adrien." "Uncle." The word hit me like a slap. Adrien grinned and bounced him. "You miss me?" "Yes." Evan wrapped his arms around his neck like that was where he'd always belonged. Claire stood near the kitchen island, watching them with a look I used to crave. Soft. Warm. Proud. She didn't look at me like that anymore. Adrien finally glanced my way. Not with surprise. With amusement. Like he was looking at a chair that had always been in the corner. Yo, he said casually, like we were buddies. Like he hadn't been crawling into my marriage and calling it comfort. I held my expression steady. Happy birthday, I said to Evan. Evan barely heard me. He tugged Adrien's hat and giggled. Adrien let him, indulgent. Then Adrien leaned down and kissed Claire, quick, confident, practiced. The room didn't even pause. No gasps. No awkwardness. Just laughter. Finally, one of Claire's friends teased. I thought you two were never gonna stop sneaking around. Another chimed in, louder, crueler, thank God Noah can't hear. Imagine trying to explain this. They all laughed like it was comedy. Claire's eyes flicked to me, just for a second, like a needle of guilt poking through the fabric. Then she looked away. Evan grinned like he was watching his favorite show. He pointed at the big cake on the table. Mommy made it for Adrien too, right? Claire's laugh came out thin. Evan. Adrien smirked. Of course she did. Someone nudged Claire with their elbow. So? Tell us. When was the last time? Claire looked down, fake shy. Adrien answered for her, like he had the right. 2 nights ago, he said easily. Right next to the master bedroom. The room erupted. My stomach turned to ice. Because I remembered that night. I remembered waking up alone. I remembered hearing nothing, back when I truly couldn't, and thinking the quiet meant peace. It hadn't been peace. It had been a cover. Evan blew out his candles with everyone cheering. When they told him to make a wish, he squeezed his eyes shut and said, loud and clear, I wish Adrien could be my real dad. Claire froze. The room went quiet, just for a beat. Then someone laughed like it was adorable. Adrien kissed Evan's forehead like a reward. Claire's face tightened with panic, and she glanced at me, like she was waiting for my blankness. Waiting for me to be deaf. I set my fork down slowly. Then I stood. Claire startled, stepping toward me with hands ready to sign a lie. I beat her to it. I'm tired, I said evenly. I'm going to rest. Claire's eyes widened. Noah. Her friends cut in immediately. Aw, don't be dramatic, one of them said. It's a kid's birthday. Yeah, another giggled. Adrien just got here. Don't you want to hang out? Adrien tilted his head and smiled at me like he was daring me to do something. Like he'd been daring me for months. I looked straight at Claire. Then I leaned in, close enough that only she could hear. Open your gift later, I murmured. She blinked. What gift? I smiled faintly. You'll know. Then I walked out. Upstairs, I shut the bedroom door and locked it. My hands didn't shake this time. They were done shaking. I sat at the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. Uncle Ray answered on the first ring. He wasn't really my uncle. He'd been with my family since I was a kid, the kind of man who never asked questions out loud, only listened and protected. Sir, he said quietly. You ready? I stared at the framed family photo on my dresser, me, Claire, Evan at the beach, all smiles and sunlight. A picture of a lie. Yes, I said. Once we file it, he warned, it takes 7 days to finalize the identity cancellation. After that, Noah Mercer won't exist in any searchable records the way he does now. Noah Mercer. The name I'd lived under for years. The name I'd built my life with. The name Claire had held in her hands and then tossed aside like it was nothing. Do it, I said. Uncle Ray paused. You sure? I looked toward the window, where the party noises floated up like ghosts. Then I thought of Claire's hands signing I love you while she used my silence as a shield. I thought of Evan calling another man dad. I'm sure, I said. All right, Uncle Ray replied. 7 days. I'll pick you up when it's done. When I hung up, the house felt too full. So I started emptying it. Not the furniture. Not the plates. The meaning. That night, after the guests left and Claire finally tiptoed into our room, I pretended to be asleep. I felt her slide in behind me, careful. Her hand touched my shoulder, then my chest. She whispered, Noah. I love you. I really, really love you. The words used to melt me. Now they just made me tired. A tear slid down my face into the pillow. Not because I still believed her. Because I couldn't believe I ever had. Over the next few days, Adrien's presence grew louder. Not in our house. Online. Videos of him with Evan at arcades. Photos of Claire bringing him coffee. Laughing captions. Heart emojis. Comments full of teasing congratulations. It was like our marriage had become a joke everyone watched. Day 1, I took every framed photo in the house and removed it from the walls. I didn't throw them in the trash right away. I just stacked them on the floor like evidence. Day 2, I had contractors come and dismantle the backyard greenhouse. Claire had called it our dream once. But dreams don't survive betrayal. The glass came down piece by piece. I watched it without blinking. Day 3, I packed. Quietly. Efficiently. Passport. Documents. Clothes. The plane ticket to Lunara. On day 7, I did one last thing. I left a small box on the kitchen counter with a note that said, in simple handwriting, "Open when you're ready to stop lying." Inside the box was a red charm bracelet, 3 cords braided together, like the ones Claire had bought at the amusement park. Only this one wasn't a promise. It was a goodbye. When the sun rose, Uncle Ray pulled up outside. I took one last look at the house. Then I walked out without turning back. Claire didn't wake up. Or maybe she did. Either way, it didn't matter. 7 days ago, she'd already left me. Now I was just making it official. Lunara was supposed to be my escape. But I didn't make it there right away. Because Uncle Ray didn't take me to the airport. He took me somewhere else. A quiet neighborhood on the edge of the city, with tall trees and a gate that opened like it recognized me. When I stepped inside, I smelled familiar cedar and old money. The front door swung open before I could knock. My mother stood there, eyes shining, hands clasped like she was holding back years. "My son," she whispered, voice breaking. "You're home." Behind her, my father's portrait hung on the wall, stern, powerful, watching. I hadn't been Noah Mercer here. I'd been Noah Caldwell. And 7 years ago, I'd walked away from this life when my father tried to control who I loved. He'd told me, coldly, "If you marry that woman, you are no longer my son." So I left. I built a life from nothing. And I became the man Claire claimed to love. While she used him. When I came back, my mother didn't ask for explanations. She only held my face in her hands like she was afraid I'd disappear again. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're here. You're safe." Safe. I hadn't felt that word in a long time. I stayed with my mother for one night. And the next morning, I signed paperwork that didn't just erase Noah Mercer. It resurrected Noah Caldwell. A week later, news broke across the city. Caldwell heir returns after years away. And in smaller gossip circles, Claire's circles, another headline spread like poison. Deaf husband dies in overseas accident. Because that's what Uncle Ray had arranged for the old identity. A clean death for a life that didn't deserve to be dragged through court. No messy search. No dragging me back with tears and blame. Just gone. When Claire heard the news, she collapsed. That's what I was told. She and Evan ended up at a hospital. She screamed my name until her voice broke. And I would have felt something. Maybe I would have. If I hadn't remembered her laughing friends saying, "Noah's deaf. He'll never know." If I hadn't remembered Evan's bright little face saying, "Daddy can't hear anyway." Days turned into weeks. Claire's company, Meridian Infrastructure, the one she called our pride, started crumbling. Because I'd been the one holding it together. I'd built their internal systems. I'd negotiated the contracts. I'd solved crises in silence and let Claire take the credit because I loved her. Without me, the cracks widened. Investors pulled out. Partners threatened lawsuits. Employees panicked. Claire tried to put Adrien in charge. It was almost funny. He strutted into meetings, acted like he knew what he was doing, and then blamed everyone else when things burned. In the end, it was Claire who took the fall. I watched the chaos from a distance, through reports Uncle Ray slid across my desk. And I kept building. My new company, Caldwell Atlas Group, went from startup to headline in record time. Patents I'd developed over years, technology I'd never had the resources to fully scale, became the crown jewel. Investors lined up. Reporters swarmed. And on the day we rang the bell for our public listing, the city went wild. How does it feel, a reporter asked me on live television, to come back after 7 years and immediately change the market? I looked into the camera and smiled politely. Work speaks, I said. Noise doesn't. That night, a charity gala hosted the city's biggest names. Claire fought her way in through the back. I know because security footage ended up on my desk the next morning. She wore a borrowed dress and a desperate face. She scanned the room like she was hunting a ghost. Then she saw me. And for a moment, she looked like she'd been struck by lightning. Noah, she breathed, too loud, too raw. People turned. Whispers spread. Claire pushed through the crowd, eyes wild. Noah, it's you. It has to be you. Security stepped in. She shoved past them and grabbed my sleeve. Her voice cracked. You're hearing. You can hear, can't you? You heard everything. That's why you left. I stared at her hand on my arm. Then I peeled her fingers off, one by one, like removing something sticky. I'm sorry, I said calmly. You have the wrong person. Her face broke. Don't do this. Don't pretend. I brought Evan, he's outside. He wants his dad. My jaw tightened. The word dad didn't belong in her mouth anymore. A woman nearby scoffed. Isn't that the bankrupt CEO? The one who embarrassed herself online? Another laughed. People really will claim anything if it gets them near money. Claire's cheeks burned. She looked at me like I was her last lifeline. Noah, please. Security moved to escort her out. She screamed, you can't throw me away. You promised forever. I leaned in, just enough for her to hear the truth. Forever was the promise you broke, I said quietly. Not me. Then I nodded to security. They walked her out while everyone watched. And the live stream didn't stop. The clip went viral by midnight. The caption? Bankrupt wife crashes billionaire's gala claiming he's her dead husband. Claire didn't just lose money that night. She lost dignity. And still, she didn't stop. Because desperation doesn't know when it's already dead. A week later, she showed up at my office with Evan. He looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. He clutched a toy car in one hand and stared at my building like it was too big to be real. Claire barged in anyway, holding a wrinkled wedding photo like it was proof that love could be forced back into shape. I'm his wife, she told my receptionist with a shaky smile. I'm here to see my husband. My assistant stepped forward, Serena Blake. Serena had been in my life longer than Claire ever knew. She'd been my closest friend in college. The one who rushed to my hospital bed after the assault. The one who learned sign language with me when my world went silent. The one who took care of my mother when I was gone. The one I should have chosen from the beginning. Serena's eyes flicked over Claire and settled on Evan with a softness that didn't belong in this mess. Then she looked back at Claire, calm as stone. Ma'am, Serena said, you don't have an appointment. Claire's smile tightened. I don't need one. He's my husband. Serena turned her gaze to me through the glass wall of my office. I nodded once. Serena stepped aside. He'll see you. Claire's relief hit her so hard she almost stumbled. She dragged Evan forward like he was a key. When she entered my office, she dropped the photo on my desk. Look, she said, voice shaking. It's us. This is real. You can't pretend it's not. I stared at the photo. Noah Mercer and Claire. A marriage that had once meant everything to me. Then I slid the photo back. It was real, I said calmly. Past tense. Claire's breath hitched. So you admit it. You are Noah. Evan looked up at me, eyes wide. For the first time in a long time, his face didn't look smug or careless. It looked scared. Dad? He whispered. The word hit me harder than anything Claire had done. Not because she deserved forgiveness. Because Evan was still a kid. A kid who'd been taught to treat me like I didn't matter. I swallowed. Then I looked at Claire. We're not married, I said. We haven't been for a while. Claire's face twisted. No. No, you can't. I can, I cut in, voice still quiet, still controlled. And I did. She shook her head violently. I didn't sign anything. You didn't have to, I said. You remember our deal? Whoever cheats disappears. Claire went pale. She did remember. She just never believed it would apply to her. Evan's lips trembled. Dad, are you mad at me? I stared at him. Then I answered honestly. I'm disappointed, I said softly. But I'm not here to punish a child. Claire latched onto that like it was mercy for her too. Then let us stay. Let us come home. I'll fix everything, Noah. Adrien is gone. I swear. I'll do anything. I leaned back in my chair. You already did anything, I said. That's the problem. Claire's eyes flooded. I can get rid of the baby, she blurted, desperate. I can. Stop, I said, sharp enough that she flinched. Don't use your child like a bargaining chip. Her face crumpled. Evan started crying quietly, wiping his cheeks with his sleeve like he was ashamed of having feelings. I stood. I walked around my desk and crouched in front of Evan, keeping my voice gentle. Listen, I said. You'll be taken care of. You will never struggle because of me. Claire's eyes widened. You'll take us back? I didn't even look at her. I looked at Evan. I'm going to set up a trust, I told him. A small share. Enough to make sure you're safe when you're older. Claire's mouth fell open. A share? 1%, I said. Because you're my blood. Not because I'm your husband anymore. Claire's sob turned into something ugly. 1%? After everything? After all I've done. That's exactly why, I said, finally meeting her eyes. You don't get rewarded for betrayal. Serena opened the office door quietly. That was my signal to end it. Claire lunged forward. Noah, please. Serena stepped between us. I'll escort you out, she said evenly. Claire looked at Serena like she was poison. So that's why. You left because of her. I didn't correct her. Let her believe whatever story helped her survive the consequences of her own choices. Outside my office, Claire's world kept collapsing. Adrien, finally tired of pretending, stopped answering her calls. Then he showed up at what used to be her house with another woman on his arm and told her, laughing, that he'd only been having fun. He'd convinced her to transfer shares to him for stability. He'd drained what was left, then walked away. By the time she realized it, Meridian infrastructure was sold off piece by piece. Bankrupt. Her name dragged through headlines like trash. And her love, Adrien, kicked her out like she'd never mattered. She showed up at my gate in the rain with Evan, shaking and furious and broken. I have nowhere to go, she said, voice raw. You can't do this. I looked at Evan, pale, soaked, trembling. So I let them stay. Not because Claire deserved warmth. Because Evan didn't deserve the cold. They got one guest room. No wandering. No we're a family again fantasies. And still, Claire tried. Every day she cooked meals she didn't know how to cook, trying to impress me. She wore the red cord bracelet like it was a promise. One night, she stood in the hallway outside my door and whispered, if you give me one chance, I'll spend my whole life making it up to you. I opened the door. And for the first time, I didn't speak softly. You don't get chances you didn't give, I said. Go to sleep. Evan got sick a few days later, feverish, weak. He called for me in the night, delirious. Not Adrien. Me. I carried him downstairs and had the doctor meet us immediately. Claire hovered like a shadow, terrified. When the doctor said Evan would be fine, Claire grabbed my sleeve, tears spilling. You still care, she whispered. I knew it. I pulled my arm away. I care about my son, I said. Don't confuse that with forgiveness. She still didn't listen. When Evan recovered, I told them they had to leave. Claire stared at me like she couldn't process it. You're really going to throw us out? Yes, I said. She shook her head, wild again. Then I'll make you remember. I'll prove to you we're meant to be. That's when Serena's name appeared in the news. Billionaire CEO Noah Caldwell to marry longtime partner Serena Blake. 3 days later. My engagement party was set to be public, press heavy. Claire showed up anyway. She brought Evan. And she brought an audience. Phones held high. Live streams already rolling. The moment I walked in, I saw her on her knees in the entryway, hair messy, face swollen from crying. Evan knelt beside her, small hands clasped, eyes red. Dad, he sobbed. Please don't marry her. Please forgive Mom. The crowd buzzed. Cameras zoomed. Commenters typed hearts and laughing emojis and cruelty in real time. Claire looked up at me like she expected the world to force my hand. Please, she cried. I made mistakes. But I love you. Evan needs you. We are your family. I stood still while flashbulbs popped. Serena stepped beside me, calm, dignified. She didn't look jealous. She looked sad. Sad for the boy. Sad for the mess. And maybe sad for the part of me that had once loved a woman like Claire with everything I had. I took a breath. Then I spoke into the microphones. Everyone here can be my witness, I said, voice steady. Claire Mercer and I have been divorced. I will not reconcile. Not in this life, not in the next. Claire's face shattered. I continued anyway. I lost my hearing protecting her. I spent years building her life in silence. I never complained. I never demanded repayment. My eyes moved to Evan. And you, I said softly, you used to call me Dad. Then you decided I didn't matter because I couldn't hear your voice. Evan sobbed harder. Claire screamed, Noah, stop. I didn't stop. The moment you betrayed me, I said, looking at Claire, it ended. And when you used our son to cover it up, you buried whatever respect I had left. Claire crawled forward like she could grab my ankles and anchor me. Don't do this, she begged. Please. I'll do anything. Anything. I stared down at her. Then I said the last thing she deserved to hear. I'm done. I turned away. Security lifted her gently but firmly. Evan reached for me, crying, Dad. I paused. Just for a heartbeat. Then I said, without looking back, your trust is set. You'll be okay. And I walked inside with Serena. That should have been the end. But consequences have a way of echoing. A week after the engagement party, my phone rang late at night. It was my security chief. Mr. Caldwell, he said. Your son's missing. My blood went cold. What do you mean missing? Claire took him out earlier, he said. He ran off during an argument. Our people are searching. Police are involved. I was already moving before he finished talking. An hour later, we got the call. Adrien. The same man who'd kicked my shoulder in the hallway like I was nothing. The same man who'd laughed about sleeping next to my bedroom wall. He'd seen the news about Evan's trust. He'd decided my son was worth money. His voice came through the phone, smug and slurred like he thought he was untouchable. You want the kid back? He said. Bring 10 million. Warehouse off Route 9. You've got an hour. Claire screamed in the background. Evan cried. And something inside me turned to steel. I'm coming, I said, voice flat. Then I hung up. I didn't bring 10 million. I brought the police. And men who didn't play games. The warehouse was dark and damp, lit by one flickering overhead bulb like a scene from a nightmare. Claire was there, frantic, shaking, trying to rush inside. I grabbed her shoulder. Stay back, I ordered. I'm his mother, she sobbed. I'm going in. You're going to get him hurt, I snapped. Move. She froze. Because she'd never heard me sound like that. Not the patient deaf husband. The man. The one who could hear. The one who wouldn't lose his son. We went in. Adrien tried to bluff, tried to threaten, tried to act like he had control. He didn't. Within minutes, officers had him pinned. Evan was found in a side room, shaking, tear-streaked, but alive. The moment he saw me, he broke. He ran into my arms like he'd finally remembered what safety felt like. Dad, he sobbed into my shirt. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I held him tight. And I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. But I did say something else. You're safe now, I whispered. I've got you. Claire collapsed on the concrete floor, sobbing like her ribs would crack. Adrien screamed as they dragged him out, cursing, threatening, spitting hate. I didn't even look at him. He was nothing. He'd always been nothing. When it was over, when Evan was wrapped in a blanket and sitting in the back of an ambulance with a warm drink, Claire stepped toward me like she expected this rescue to rewrite the story. Like saving our son meant saving our marriage too. Noah, she whispered. You came. You still. I cut her off. I came for Evan, I said. Her face twisted. But we. There is no we, I said, voice quiet but final. You made sure of that. Tears poured down her cheeks. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Take care of him, I said, looking at Evan through the ambulance window. Be a better mother than you were a wife. Claire shook her head violently. Don't leave me. I stared at her for a long time. Then I said the only truth left. "You're not losing me," I said. "You lost me." And I walked away. 3 days later, I stood beside Serena in a sunlit room full of calm faces and no cruelty. No cameras fishing for humiliation. No fake friends laughing at a husband's pain. Just quiet. Just vows spoken with real meaning. When Serena took my hand, it didn't feel like a performance. It felt like peace. And for the first time in a long time, I believed in a forever that didn't require me to disappear to survive it.